Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the next Squat Success podcast episode. I'm very excited today to be in London, in Islington, at M1 Dental. So Sonny is a very good friend of mine and has opened up a practice in London, and very excited to share his journey today. So thank you, Sonny. It's a pleasure to be on with you today. So if you just want to give a bit of background, who you are, and let everybody know what you've been up to.
So I'm Sonny, I'm a dentist. I love composite, love restorative. Interestingly, don't do aligners, don't do implants. Built a whole sort of way of working just off of direct restorative stuff, which is quite interesting to some people. I also run the DRE Composite course, is what some people may know, some of your listeners may know. Additional to the DRE Composite course, we have level 2 programs, DRE posterior, DRE anterior. And now with the clinic, working on something super special, taking a leaf out of your book, and have a level 3 program, which is going to be way more sort of in-depth and bespoke, and really help people perform, do the numbers, right?
Yeah.
So, and doing clinical once a week and working on the business the rest of the time. And now we're here.
Yeah, no, fantastic. So we're in the practice today and it's absolutely stunning. So we're going to share a little bit more and do a little bit of a tour later on and see what the practice is like. So if we just rewind a little bit, Sonny, so going back, obviously, going through university, then becoming an associate dentist, what kind of led you into that route of, doing the kind of work that you do, composite, direct restorative work, etc.?
That's a deep question to kick off with. So I think like many of us, right, we finish uni and what do? We do VT and then we go to NHS practice, right? You do mixed practice. And so that was my journey, and actually I found it extremely difficult. I found it quite depressing because you be in your room, shut the door, you see 30 patients in the day, you come home, collapse on the floor, and then you do that every day, right? And I sometimes found like the sort of team ethic or morale, the culture wasn't there, should we say, in a lot of these practices. You're very much by yourself, right? And maybe you'd have lunch with somebody. And I think what got me really interested in composite was two things. Number one, I wasn't very good at it.
Okay.
Right? And then you're seeing NHS patients, and then they say to you, you know what, I don't want the metal filling, I want the composite. And you're like, okay, cool. And you're kind of happy because what they're going to pay for your time in a more meaningful way.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, when was the last time I did one? You're not doing it all the time, right? You're kind of rusty. It's not your mainstay. And so having done some of these composites and thinking that they were good at the time, because they all look good when you first do them, and then seeing the recalls or when they're coming back and the problems that I was seeing, I mean, a lot of the time we can blame the patient, but a lot of the time I'd say it's probably operator error, right? There was things going wrong. So that was probably the first, which was a need. Like I had a need to get better at it, and we spoke about how general practices make a lot of sense in the current climate of Invisalign practices and stuff, right? I think general practices is the one now, and it's probably always been. And in that light, you're going to do a lot of composite work. Like you're going to do a lot of composite work, especially if you're a private practice. So wanting to get better at that was one. And then number two, like great mentors that you encounter. I remember, I've done a lot of composite courses, a lot of the big names that we've spoken about today. But one particular trainer really stood out to me, and that was Sabir Banerjee. And the thing that was so cool about him was super pragmatic, right? Doing really complex stuff and breaking it down in ways that actually I felt I could do it. And that really woke me up, like seeing like a single wall tooth, and then he would do like a direct composite crown, for a single wall tooth, with the single wall being the natural post of the tooth, and that blew my brain. I just couldn't unsee it when I saw that, and so naturally I went and had a go at doing that myself, but I wasn't very good with the traditional.
It's really interesting because even go back, I graduated 10 years ago, and we were still taught pins and amalgams.
Sure.
We weren't even taught how to use composite to do that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Which is crazy, thinking about it now, 10 years later.
Yeah, I mean, when was the last time you used a pin, right?
Well, I haven't used amalgam for about 4 years since I left the NHS.
So I don't think I've used amalgam since 2016.
Oh, wow.
Just in composite since that time, you know what I mean? So that really woke me up to it, and then like you say, when Squat Success kind of happened, right? And then you found the lane that you're really good at, and you can make a difference. It's the same deal with me. I was making a big difference for a lot of patients. I find a lot of patients these days are very, very clued on. Yeah, not everybody, but your average private patient's way more educated now than they were 5 years ago.
Yeah, they know their options. They've been on Google. They've had a look around. They know a lot more than what they knew 10 years ago, basically.
They do their own research, right? Which is very prudent,
Yeah.
So they know what they're after, and I think a lot of them, I don't know if you've noticed, but I think not just young people, but I think there's certainly a shift to people becoming more health conscious. Maybe not more healthy, but definitely more health conscious, right? They understand that certain things are not good for them. You know, I think fewer young people now drink relative to like when we were in university. There's that kind of move, right? Yeah. Less smokers and all that, which is for the best.
And a move to non-metal,
non-invasive,
non-metal.
Yeah, exactly. Non-metal is a big one. I mean, we see a lot of that here. In fact, that's one of our big inquiries is for ceramic implants. You know, and so we only do ceramic here. So that's like a big pull. So I'm seeing a lot of health conscious patients, but especially in terms of traditionally maybe we would have done a crown for a broken cusp, right? Now they're like, you know, I don't want to shave my enamel away. You know, that's what I'm hearing with patients on the phone. Right? I spoke to one yesterday, and that was exactly the thing. I really want to keep my tooth. And I was like, cool, totally get it. So I think it kind of married up quite neatly and nicely. In terms of the sort of training thing and saying about yourself falling into it a little bit, that's what happened to me as well. So, you know, having done lots of composite courses and restorative and endo and XLA, I was doing a lot of stuff. All the Lundec courses, I think I collected all of them. After doing a lot of that, I'd spent like 50 grand in about 18-month period.
Typical course junkie.
And you know what I should have done with that 50 grand? I should have come and saw you, Bobby, and said, here, take my money. Yeah, I should have, you know, if that existed back then, but it didn't, right? Because I'm not saying I didn't learn a lot, but I feel that a lot of dentists, they know a lot already. Like, knowledge is not the problem. It's like implementation and then having people in your corner to kind of...
Well, this is one of my biggest gripes with courses on the whole in general. So whatever it is, whether it's business or clinical, is the application. So you see with implants all the time. So obviously my background is doing implant training, but you know, you can go anywhere and learn the theory, but how much application is off the back of that? And most of these courses, you can place 2-3 implants, unless you're going abroad or wherever it is, and that's opening up now. But back then, unless you're doing it hands-on,
so true.
You can learn whatever you want in your head, but we use our hands. Obviously with business it's different, and you still got to apply that in a different way. But when it comes to clinical stuff, you've got to be using your hands, you've got to be doing it, and you've got to have somebody literally looking over you, checking.
Who also does it.
Is that good? Yeah, who also does it. And is it good? You know, how do I help you?
Sure.
How do I, you know, I remember when I was really fortunate in my practice, my principal used to mentor me in the practice for implants. And I still remember him literally holding my hand and be like, Bobby, no, the jaw goes this way or that way. And he would literally move my hand like this or that angle, this is the way it goes. And you know, you don't get that on courses.
Sure. It stays with you, right?
Yeah, it stays with you. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, again, that's one of the visions for this place is to not only be a place where they can refer cases and come and shadow. Like we do that for our group, right? So we have a group of 325 dentists, all very nice, sound people that we've trained, right? Had the pleasure of training, and so we actually have that option for them. If they refer a case, they can come shadow it for free.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So I think that's the next step from a course is actually seeing somebody do it. And then what's the level beyond that is of course live patient mentoring, but I won't spoil that yet, right?
So when you, obviously you've been through that journey, been an associate, then you started learning all of that. And then what led you then to start teaching it as part of DRE? So how did you get into that process?
Sure. So again, you know, having this, by this point I kind of found that, actually I'll tell you how it started. I was quite entrepreneurial from a young age, shall we say, right? And so how this all came about, how I actually sort of broke out of the whole associate life without going into a practice straight away, began around 2016. So a friend of mine from uni called me and said, look, I've started a squat, like come and join me. So I come and join him, and for the first 9 months it's heinous, you know, like 1 patient a day, 2 patients a day, because you're not the priority, right? Just face it, right? The principal's the priority, and he's got to be busy, he or she's got to be busy, and then you're going to get spillover. So that was my first real experience of actually building a list. Now, you can't take 100% credit. Naturally, the practice is going to bring patients and they're going to do their bit. But equally, a really good associate is going to, you know, have more patients come back and be happy with the treatment and not, you know. So that's where I started to get switched on about how this all started to work, because I was watching it, I was being part of it. And so that happened then, and within like 3-4 years, I'd worked my way up to like a full book of like 6 days a week. You know, we all go for that phase too, like just hammering it, more is better. And,
well, it's interesting you say that, because at the moment there's quite a lot of associates who don't actually want to work and build a list. They just expect that it's going to be there for them. Okay. So there's a bit of a dynamic change there, I think, within the marketplace, especially when you're recruiting associates now. And you might find that in this place, when you're recruiting, it is different.
Well, I mean, even for the younger associate who's listening to this thinking, actually, I just want to see the patients and go home. I get all of that. But, you know, part of your skill set and repertoire is going to be able to generate goodwill and develop that in your patient base anyway, and it's a skill that's going to be there for life, right?
So one of the things I say to everybody is, and associates, if you have white space in your book, that is your problem, not the practice owner's.
Agreed.
You know, what have you done to fill that?
Agreed.
Have you scanned? Have you educated the patient? Have you taken pictures? Have you done everything possible within your means to communicate to the patient what they need?
Dude, not even just that, right? I'll take it a step further. Whenever I had that type of a situation, I'm pretty proactive, right? So even if it meant, you know, printing a list of recalls and going to reception, who you should also have a great reception rapport with, and saying little nudge, like these are like 20 important patients, I think you should just give them a bell and get them in. And lo and behold, of those 20, 11 book in. You know what I mean? It's just that little gentle nudge.
Yeah, that's super proactive.
Yeah.
But yeah, that mindset, I think, that mindset is for the people who are eventually going to become practice owners.
Maybe, right? I didn't know that, right?
If you have that mindset, you're probably going to end up owning a practice one day.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that, or even have an inclination of that. In fact, I thought I'd never want to own a practice.
I wouldn't know that now.
Yeah.
I only know it now. Obviously, going back through the journey and obviously speaking to and working with so many dentists and seeing the mindsets. But saying that now, if somebody came to me and said that, you know, in my head, I'll be like, yeah, you're gonna go there. You're gonna open your own practice because you're already thinking like that.
Yeah.
And it's super proactive. But,
and then you're learning from, you know, if you've got a good relationship with a practice owner, you're learning stuff all the time, right? Because they're going to discuss, and you're going to be their sounding board of sorts. You might not be the owner per se, but you might be like the top associate, right? And you know, I was the top associate, right? Like I did what was needed. But to the point, I didn't ever think of it like, of course, you don't have white space. You're there to work, right? I want to do my work and then I want to go. I'd rather not have gaps in the day, right? You're there to do a thing. I totally get that. But I actually viewed it as like, this is somebody's business. This is their baby. They've invited you into it. So I'm going to treat it as good as I can. You know, if that meant like there's shit on the floor and picking it up, I would do that. You know, like sweeping the floor, whatever. It's their mess.
So that is such an incredible mentality, because you'll often find that it's complete opposite within the dental profession. Most associates don't think like that. I thought like that, you know, when I was an associate, but not a lot do. I don't know why, for whatever reason, but if you did start to think like that, you're going to go a hell of a lot further in your career, whatever you do, if you start thinking like that.
Sure. And I think, you know, where that probably came from. I grew up in a shop.
So did I.
Yeah, so you get stuck in from the minute you can pick something up, you're getting stuck in, right? You know, son, move those newspapers, whatever it is, you get stuck in. So maybe that was something in there for me. And also, I was an army reservist. So during my university years, for the 5 years, I was a soldier, right? So in that environment as well, it's very team orientated, yeah? It's all about the team. It's not about you being the special guy, right? There's no special guy, right? Because that special guy, well, if I've got 5 special guys here, they will do that one special guy, won't they? Right? So it doesn't matter how special you are. So it's not about that. It's all about team ethos. And there you all just get stuck in. I'll tell you something really interesting. You know, like when you're on a range and you're doing like a live firing exercise, so you're basically shooting rounds down this range. You're in like 4 on 4, so like 2 fire teams. And, you know, it's not like Hollywood films where they just run and shoot and stuff. No, it's like these 4 are going to be on their belly and they're providing cover. And the other 4 are now moving up to the next position. Yeah, it might be 10, 20 meters ahead. And they get on their belly and then they fire and then this team moves. And that's basically how you move, right? And then you can scale that up to like 30 men or 60 men or 100 men, a company, whatever it is. Anyway, after that's all said and done, do you know what you do? What? As you walk back, everybody has to pick up the shells.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You have to pick up the shells to keep the training ground pristine for the next people that are going to train on it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Maybe it's just like a normal thing. If I see rubbish, I do it outside. If I see rubbish, I just pick it up and put it in the bin. And I try and teach my kids the same. But I don't know if it's something that's stemmed that deep, or is it just, you know, I just kind of respected the place. I think that's what it probably was. So there was that point, and then you asked about.
So what I was asking was really, I know we're on a bit of tangent, but really, what led into DRE Composite then?
Right,
so
cool.
How did you go from that then, obviously, to opening your own composite courses? Got
it. So after this private experience, which ultimately didn't turn out to be what I hoped it was going to be. So I actually ended up quite sad there too. And then obviously put a lot of time and energy into courses, thinking that that's what we all think, right? I'm going to go do a diploma. And then that's going to solve all my problems. Well, it's not. If you've got problems, you've got to solve them. And the diploma will solve your education gap. But that's it. It's not going to magically translate into money. You can be a really great dentist. Doesn't mean people are going to beat the door down.
Well, I got my own opinion on diplomas and MScs.
Right.
Which we could share later on.
We'll have to do that, right? So nonetheless, I never went that route. It was always for me short courses. It was always but plenty of them. Anyway, long story, after not being happy at this private practice, even investing, I just wasn't seeing the spend that I had spent on this course. I wasn't seeing it in my pay. Don't get me wrong, my pay grew. Like I was performing better and better every year. That's cool. But not like a 50 what I spent, right? And maybe my time frame was too short. It doesn't,
Why do you think that was then?
I actually think that what I learned from too many different people.
Okay.
Right? Because this person does this and says this is wrong, and that person says this and says that's wrong. And actually you get kind of like confused. You get like a deer in headlights. That's number one. Because you're not really learning an approach or a system or a framework, right? It's a little shameless plug. I teach a framework, right? And it's a framework that works across all of the situations you're going to see day to day. And when you do one approach for all of the situations using one system, you get pretty good because you're getting the reps in. And that's the secret of me is just I did that same approach. And I got it in, and how that happened was after these courses and not seeing what I wanted to see, I went into American forums because I thought the Americans are way ahead of us. So I was listening to Dental Town, Howard Ferran. You might have to tag him on this. Maybe he'll get me on his pod. But I was listening to him a lot, and I thought, this guy's a machine as well, right? Pumping out podcasts like every day, like just on it. I think he's like in the thousands. You just open my mind to what people were thinking and saying. And so I went onto his forum and I started learning there, and I actually looked at this and I saw greater curve, right? This matrix system, and I'm looking at it, scratching my head because at this point I had a PhD in wedges, low profile, fat one, BioClear, all these different. And these guys like, oh, we don't really use wedges, and I was like, what? I'm looking like, where's the wedge, right? And that just blew my brain. Little thing really blew my brain. So this little £200, £250, whatever investment it was there, really set me up, right? More than the 50 grand spend on courses. Maybe I'm being a bit unfair on it. It definitely helped me, but this was outsized. Like I got this kit, and immediately I was like, okay, I could do this. It just works. And then I started learning trial and error, or trial and terror. When you're in a dental practice, I did that for a couple of years. And then it all sort of, I really got better at dentistry at this point. Then I started to think, I'm going to leave this and do something. This is when the entrepreneurial spirit came. And then at this point, I hear Dr. Brown on Howard Ferran's podcast. And he's the guy who made Greater Curve, dentist of over 40 years experience. And he's retired now, right? But anyway, at the point he was practicing, one podcast he's ever done, and I heard it. And I thought it was like meant to be. And he was super down to earth. And interesting thing about him, he was a Vietnam War veteran before becoming a dentist. Like what a story. So I feel like we had like some shared values or at least discipline
as well.
At least discipline, like for sure. Like we had that, and very like matter of fact, very easy to talk to him. So I sent him an email. I was like, hi Dr. Brown, like love your work, all of that, love your system, been using it for 2 years now, really enjoying it. I said I'd love to talk at some point, and then he says, let's talk on Tuesday. It was Saturday.
Quick reply.
He's like, let's talk on Tuesday. So I remember, it's funny enough, long story how this all comes full circle. I was actually in this practice at that time when my friend Techie owned it. And I was doing Saturdays at the time trying to break out of this associate job that was turned out to not be so great. And then I said to him, I said to Techie, I said, I've got to quickly take this call. He's like, yeah mate, you go do it. I went outside, sat on that wall, and I was on this FaceTime with Dr. Brown. Introduced myself, said to him, like, thank you for serving and all that, like, thing that you say. And then we just hit it off. And he says, well, listen, let's meet again next week on Zoom properly when you're at a computer, and bring me your cases.
And do you think that would have happened if you didn't listen to that podcast?
How would I have ever, like, maybe I would have messaged him, maybe, but like
the point I'm saying is, it's just so funny. You have these sometimes in life, you just have these little moments or these little things that just have such a massive impact on your life. Change the course of your life. But you don't know when they're going to come. You don't know how it's going to come. You don't know when it's going to come. But also, it's the fact that you took a bit of action off the back of it. You could have listened to it and just ignored it.
Sure.
But you listened to it and you emailed the guy. And you were like, let's talk. And he replied. He might not have replied. He might have, but you don't know. But you did it.
100%.
And that's the biggest thing. And that's a massive point, I think, in life in general, outside of dentistry or whatever it is. But it's just like, you have to sometimes just do some shit. For sure. And take some action. For sure. Because otherwise you don't know what's going to happen in your life.
For sure. Yeah. So true. You spoke about mentors today. From that we hit it off, and then that whole meeting back and forth went on for a year. And in a year, I pretty much downloaded everything that was in Dr. Brown's head and put it into mine and started doing it and coming back saying, I did this. And then he'd be like, I never thought of that. And I was like, I did something new. You know what I mean? I was like, yeah, that's how I did it. And then, for example, Sabir Banerjee's really, really great composite crown technique. I could do it, but I couldn't pull it off the way he could with sectionals, floss ties and all that. I made my own technique using Greater Curve. And I showed Dr. Brown, he's like, I never thought of that. And so then it became like quite nice, like collaborative two-way. And then just naturally off the back of that, I said to him after that, I said, look, I want to teach this. And so...
but isn't that a great example of innovation and collaboration and the power of what can be achieved when we work together?
Sure, totally.
To do bigger stuff. So I'm a massive fan of that. Whether it's in business, whether it's in dentistry or whatever, but the power of working together, because you just came up with so many new solutions. You're all doing good stuff. You're all doing great stuff even. And you got Sabir, like, you know, up here, wherever he is. You got your other guy, wherever he is, with Greater Curve. And then you'll just come out of the blue and like, well, what about if you do it like this?
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting. Listen, you know, I got to be humble as well, right? Some of these things are not like groundbreaking, but I often have my delegates say to me, Sonny, it's so simple, why did I not think of it? And that's what I think, you know, or where I excel at is actually keeping things super simple, right?
You know, well, one of my implant mentors said to me recently, literally as simple as this, Bobby, an implant is a titanium screw. It goes in bone. That is it. It's simple. Don't overcomplicate things. It is screw, bone, and what is the simplest way we can engage the bone, and that's it.
I hear it.
Why overcomplicate anything in life?
I hear it.
It's the same with business. Anything, just simple, and that's how you get better results.
I hear it totally. So that was the training side of things. So then off the back of that, obviously this good relationship, and you know, a big thank you to him and the Greater Curve team for taking a bit of a punt on me, right? Because they didn't have distribution in the UK, nor did they have education. They don't really have any education anywhere, but it's such a great way of working, yeah? So for the practice owners listening, single system that can restore anterior, posterior class 5, can work all the way up to full arch cases using technique that I developed, which is super cool. Yeah. I'm actually teaching that in October as well to a group of our delegates. And it just makes, like, for example, for them, inventory is super easy, right? They're just like, well, we've got this one system. If you still love a sectional, have a couple of sectionals, not, you know, but it's super easy. Compared to like BioClear or those types of systems, it's a fraction of the price, yeah? So you're saving though. But the results, it's all about clinical results. They're just incredible, you know, like really, really great. So for me, it's a no-brainer, and that's why like, our dentists love it, because it's simple, effective, does what it says on the tin. You don't have a matrix box of like 25 different things and try this and try that and get frustrated. Yeah. It's very simple. It's this one for this. It's that one when you need a taller band, and it's this one when you need flare on the buccal face. Yeah. Like that is pretty much. Obviously, I'm oversimplifying, but in essence, that's your band selection, right? And it really just solves a lot of the clinical problems that we face. That on the business, you know, an associate isn't going to come into you, knock on your door and say, Bobby, I had a really tough time with this case. I ran 2 hours late and I only charge 100 quid. Yeah. They're just not going to. Nobody wants to admit difficulties, right? I think that's why we've had good success as well, because it's like you, it's a safe space to ask questions. No one's going to judge you, but we actually give you a solution, and you could stop searching. Yeah, you could just like get on with it now.
Well, this is one of the things that I love about it, and one of the things that I love about you, and I think one of the reasons why we're connected so well is because even with what you're doing, you're not just teaching how do you do composites, but you're teaching then how do you implement this in your business, compared to doing, you know, £100 composite MO. Compared to doing what you're doing, there is another solution, but it's how you present it to the patient. Totally. And how do you have these conversations about these different options, and obviously then how does that relate to the profit back in your practice? Totally. That's huge. Totally. Especially for a practice owner, even for an associate, if you're trying to grow what you're doing. 100%. It's massive.
100%. I mean, massive. Just to share this one, I had a young associate, and it's such a crazy story, right? I actually knew him when he was growing up. I never saw him for years, right? Yeah. And then he booked, back then I was doing like lunch and learns for practices. He booked one with me, right? And it was just me and him. And I'm looking and going, you look super familiar. And he goes, it's me, it's Afi. Yeah? And I'm like, he goes, you're the reason I want to be a dentist. And it was like such a nice like full circle moment. I was like, I knew you when you was a kid, and now you're a dentist, and now you want to learn from me. Nuts, yeah? And he said like, yeah, I just saw what you was doing from young, and I just want to be like that. And that's super like nice. Anyway, long story, full circle now. He's, I think, 3 or 4 years qualified. Yeah. Maybe 5, something like that, right? Young dentist. Yeah. Does level 1, does level 2. He's probably going to do level 3 because he's like a go-getter, yeah? And he's like, I can see a return on my time. And what he's spent so far, he's got a return. I don't want to say his numbers, but I mean, he was doing like what average associate does, yeah? And then he, no, I won't say. But he's doubled that. He's doubled that from 2 courses. That's it. And then the support that we give in the WhatsApp group that we have. Yeah. And even that, right, as you know, like, yeah, I'm in there as much as I can be, but you know, it's difficult to be in there like every day, right? Yeah. So again, trying to work on something to address that too. But I mean, that to me, that's like life-changing stuff. Like, he's doubled his take-home, not just his revenue. He's doubled his take-home. Yeah, but that's such an incredible thing to do, you know, for lots of different reasons. So number one, the patient's getting a better clinical outcome.
that they might not have been offered before anyway, if they didn't know what to do, or they might have just put a crown on it or whatever it was and hacked half the tooth.
And maybe
apart.
that might not be a, you know, if that margin's subgingival and it's not a good seal.
Exactly, it might not have been the best solution in the first place.
Exactly.
But then when it comes to a financial point of view, obviously, you know, for the dentist it's great, for the practice it's great.
For the patient it's great.
Yeah, for the patient it's great, exactly. Because the patient gets, all right, even if the patient pays more money, isn't it better if you paid more money but you got a better outcome?
Do it once.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
For sure. And that's what I'm saying, in line with people now, my experience has been a lot of my patients, they want to keep their natural teeth. They want to avoid it, you know, having nerve problems. You know, so we teach you how to avoid pulp exposure and using biodentine and things like this, right? It's very, very cool. Dentistry, I say, it's never been a more exciting time to be a dentist. Like, your life has never been easier in a lot of ways, right? There's solutions for everything. You just need a solid framework to be able to kind of follow that. So yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I was just going to drop a point as well, because I want to give another honourable shout out to Abbas and Zora. So these two, imagine this, right? It's so small, such a small world. It's the synchronicity that happens, yeah? So these guys, they, the missus is a specialist periodontist, yeah, does implants, everything, really, really skilled. Works at a specialist practice. My friend's parents were being treated by her. So he takes them to their appointment, and she's speaking to him, and she knows he's a dentist, they're talking, and she goes, oh, you know, I've started practice. She goes, do you want to come have a chat? Now, he knew I wasn't happy at this private job, so he says, look, I'm cool where I'm at, yeah, I've been there a long time, they treat me great, yeah, I'm happy doing what I'm doing, but my friend Sonny, you should definitely talk to him. So I go down for this, I speak to him on the phone, really nice couple, I go to their practice, and the resourceful me, this is how it turns out. Now, I come prepared, you know, if I'm coming for an interview. Not only did I come with before and afters, right, to show like, these are the things I can do, I came with my last 36 months figures. Right? And I came to show, like, look, I'm growing X amount every quarter. Yeah, I am growing, yeah, in that same environment, yeah. In this environment, yeah, I reckon I could do more, whatever. And, you know, I have to give them mega respect, because they just didn't waste my time. They said to me, Sonny, listen, like, what we're charging currently is, I don't think you're going to do that here. You know, like, if anything, you're too qualified here. They said, well, let's stay in touch, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. Now, I was quite good at endo at the time, like, right? I'm not an endodontist, I was quite good at it. So I had this idea that I said to him, I said, look, right now you're throwing all the endos out. Like, this is a couple of days later, I came back with my master shot, and I came out and I said, why don't you let me come in and do the endos for you? Yeah, I'll do the endos, I'll do the composite, and then you guys can do the crown. There's no risk of the referral not coming back, and no, you know, it's easy. And I said, and I'll pay you X amount for the day, and they agreed to it. Cool. So that was my first step into like referral dentistry as a non-specialist back in 2021, you know, 2020, whatever it was. Yeah, it wasn't the thing. So I started doing that, and I remember the first clinic. I've said this before on the podcast, but it's really worth rehashing. My friend Nicky, soldier, absolute soldier, he nursed for me, right? And we started, I think, 12 midday, and that first day we finished 11 p.m.
Oh, wow.
And Abbas comes in and goes, we had a great day, boys. Yeah, made me crack up, and I thought, maybe I haven't thought this through properly. And it was actually on Payment's podcast. He asked me, so what was that? I said, dude, I'm not an endodontist. You know what I mean? Like, it was MB2 and this and all that. But what I was good at, what opportunity came of that was, I was really good at composite, weren't I? Like, that part was easy. It could be super subgingival. It could be like, you can't get a seal. No, I'll probably.
You don't have to do the M bit.
I could, everything else. But restoring the tooth, that was my. So then that's how it changed into me doing restorative referral, right? And then I started getting really good at that. And then I started doing it in other people's places. Like, I was going to a practice in Surrey, again, really nice people. And I was doing it at a few different places, Chelmsford, and I was travelling around. So I had my little trolley I got in the surgery, I'll show you later, with all my kit, and I used to cart it around. I did that for years. And then that evolved into renting surgeries. You know, so I'll give another little shout out. Some great people in dentistry. I'll shout out Kunal, Tooth Club, lovely guy. Met him in Spain at Dental Forum. And we didn't really get to talk properly, but we kept like bumping into each other. And then he said to me, he said, son, listen, take my number. When we're back in the UK, we'll go for coffee, yeah? I was like, cool, let's do it. So I went, had coffee with him and all the rest of it, we speak about whatever. And then he had a practice around the corner from my house. And he said, why don't you come just like rent this one? And so that's how that all happened. And I did that for years. And so that it just naturally progressed from there into us getting a clinic now. So yeah, that's pretty much how that happened. So I'd like to say to you, I had this grand strategy. But actually, I think sometimes you just got to be in the field and you just got to be active. And
I think it's a bit like myself. It happened by accident. It wasn't planned. It's just you went through a whole load of shit, figured out what works, what doesn't work, what was good, what you enjoyed, what you don't enjoy, and then it just kind of branched off the back of that, essentially.
For sure.
What the hell led you into then opening up a squat when you've got DRE, you're doing so well with your composite work? why would you want to squat?
Sure.
Why would you want to go down that practice ownership journey?
Well, I'll answer that one first before I forget it, right? So, I mean, actually, I question it now myself, right? But it wasn't an easy decision. It was a big decision to make, right? Because number one, I really think we actually can't multitask, despite what people say, like, in the army, a gunner is a gunner, right? Like, you can't do everything, right? So you're quite a specialist. So doing Dre, that's kind of, I wouldn't say like, it's the be all and end all for me, but my heart and soul is in it, right? I love seeing people like, the results they get, just making life better for them. I love that, And you said it before, but I'd say it too, is like, a lot of these people, they kind of enter as delegates, but they kind of leave like your friends, like they leave like your pals.
Yeah,
and like,
well, I'll go a step further. They almost live like family.
You see what I mean?
With us.
I've got another shout out, which is Dr. Fard, right? So he's Delegate Zero on the Dre course, So actually I was on VT with him many years ago, and then we didn't speak for 10 years. And he was doing property stuff, right? You're familiar with him in your Northampton circle, right? And we just reconnected, and I went to one of his property events to support. And I told him what I was doing, and at the time he wasn't really like a big believer, right? Because he's a property guy now, right? He doesn't need dentistry, and he wanted to leave, And I said to him, listen, it's cool. Like, come and check what we're doing. It makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
So he comes and does the course, and he loves it. Like, he just loved it. He said, man, this makes sense. And he was a BioClear person, loved it, right? Like, just loved it. And it really got him rethinking. I think this and this way of working might be better for me. Goes back into practice, starts growing pretty much very quickly, starts doing every other course I got, starts coming to the courses, helping me as well. So we became very, very close, we became very, very good pals. And our values are very aligned, And so the natural conversation after like 2 years of Dre was saying, look, man, I'm getting itchy fingers, like I'm doing numbers now, I'm grossing more than I've ever grossed. And I'm just looking like, actually, a big chunk of that's going away. Like, I want to build something, actually we start practice. I said, all right, present me something, and he came back with like a really diligent plan of like a really good strategy, I thought, But it was in Northampton.
Okay. Right. Oh, we're not in Northampton now. We're in London.
But I'm a London boy, right? Born and raised. This is what I know.
Londoners don't like coming out of London. I know that.
Dude, this is what I know, right? No, don't get me wrong. When I used to go to like Surrey and you go to these country places, I love those patients. Like, really nice, easy to deal with. Like, don't get me wrong, I love that whole thing. But this is my house, right? This is my home. So I think I wanted to be here. And then this opportunity presented itself, and then I just pretty much said to him quite simply, and very important, is that people need to know roles and responsibilities. I said, look, if we do this thing together, which I think I've got this cracking opportunity, if I can get this, do you want to do it? He's like, look, cool. I said, but look, you got to take care of the clinical and the front end. I'll take care of the back end, and I'll do a day clinical, what I'm doing already. I won't refer or rent anywhere. I'll just bring all my patients here. I won't do anything else. And that was pretty much the agreement, that actually, cool, like we can do this. And so that's the only reason I went ahead and took this on, because I got to a place where like Dre was just really like moving like a nice machine, like delegates coming in regularly, they're getting big value, doing great stuff. I thought like, I could just really.
So you didn't really do it out of a massive need of practice, or like squat success is very different. Like you got dentists, who really. They're just dying for it. They want to practice. It's the lifeblood. we hate where we are. We just want to go ahead, do it, whatever. For you, it was so different. It just kind of landed on your plate.
Maybe.
But with a bit of a strategy then behind it.
Maybe, but I'll say there's parallels to those people too, because those particular people who are saying they hate where they are, I feel you completely. Because that's where I was. The only difference was I took a step between hating life and practice ownership and went to do referral and renting surgeries. That was just the difference. I just bridged that gap because I was trying to be very resourceful and not fork out for a surgery, and instead leverage other people's stuff, build a list that way, pay a flat rate. It works, right? It really works. I want to be like a super associate, right?
No, it's an amazing point, and it's something that people should think about, because starting from an associate, going straight to a practice owner. You've done the bit in the middle, but nobody actually really thinks about that.
Sure.
They only ever think, I only have two options.
Sure.
I've got to be an associate, or I've got to buy a practice or step squat.
0 to 100.
But nobody actually thinks there is a little bit in the middle.
Totally.
So we do have a few people in Squat Success doing that, but it's great to hear that you've done that bit in the middle. And you've kind of been through that, but then obviously now you've gone that way.
Yeah, Bobby, you've got to remember that I was doing it before it was cool, I
don't think it was ever cool.
It's kind of cool now. It's kind of cool now, just to make it happen, right? You just make it use. I think the rule number one of business is like you got to use what you got.
100%.
So that's what I had, right? I had connections.
Backside resources.
Yeah, that's it, right? So I had, and I think there's something to be said about you know, your network is your net worth, right? You know, that's such a cliche, but it's so true, right? And so, like, you know, over the years, I built some really good friends. I've built a couple of people who probably consider me as not their friend, yeah. But by and large, I got some decent friends who really helped me, and I'll really help them. Yeah. And you know, I think that goes a really long way, right? So actually, not being super selfish all the time, you know, is probably the way to go, because you never know when you're going to need help, right? Yeah. And you never, you know, so...
No, 100%. Your network is your net worth. That's what they always say. And I feel the same thing. You know, I'm very, very fortunate to have such a valued support network within what we've got. There's so many good people out there. You just have to find the right people, and you can find a solution for everything.
Totally.
That's the way I view it, without a doubt.
Totally.
So what's the vision for the practice then?
Well, I think I've got to go back to your juicy question, because everyone's going to be like, he hasn't answered it,
Well, the composite one.
The pricing one, right?
Answer the practice one first.
All right.
And then we'll come back to that one.
Cool. So the vision for the practice.
Yeah. What's the vision for this place? Obviously, it's a beautiful practice. We're going to tour it. You can show everybody what it's like. But yeah, what's the vision for this place?
So the vision for the place is definitely like sort of health-focused dentistry, right? So it's less about what's good for the tooth, and more so what's good for the teeth as well as the rest of your body. You know, so our patients are really into that kind of stuff. And you know, the lady who called me yesterday, for example, was like, you know, I couldn't really find anywhere that does what you guys do. You know, so these people are clued up, right? So yeah, doing stuff, you know, biocompatible materials, just taking a bunch of precaution. I mean, like we do a smart amalgam removal, for example, and just a little shout out to people who are curious as to what that is when you remove amalgam, that's the most exposure of the mercury in the atmosphere is actually during the removal. Yeah. And so, you know, we're drilling that out, and one of the things that you could do, by the way, top clinical tip, is a tungsten carbide burr can work better than a diamond in terms of how much of that debris is coming up and around.
Rubber dam as well.
Yeah, of course, like 100%. Like, you know, think about it, it's going everywhere. And so I was at a conference in Turkey in April, and they showed this video, which was really like telling. They basically put this kind of like screen up, and dentist is removing amalgam, and you can see the amalgam in the air, and it's like a plume. It's like everywhere, right? It's like a bomb went off, and you're like, I'm breathing that, right? I'm breathing that. So when patients ask, and when dentists ask, like, what does it mean what you guys are doing? I said, listen, we're doing exactly the same as you, right? We're just taking a little bit longer, right? And just doing we're just doing it to a T, but we take way more precaution than everybody, right? And so when we do smart amalgam removal, we've got a Swiss air filter. It's got like 5, it's like COVID suction thing, but just like on steroids, and it has like 5 layers of filter. So all of the mercury that's being dissipated into the air is getting absorbed. We use special masks. We use like a Ghostbusters suit. The patient's completely gowned up. I mean, like really, like
it's a really interesting concept. Because there is a massive shift towards this, and I think that's a whole conversation in itself.
But think about this, right? So not only do we have patients that come to us wanting smart amalgam removal, that's cool. But actually, if you think about it, the patient's really health conscious, but you're doing it 20 times in the week. So why are you not worried about yourself, right? And so that's all it is. So we just protect our team, we protect our staff in that regard. So that's about as biological as it gets, right? In terms of like sometimes you see these kind of things online about what it is and what it isn't. I get that, but my explanation to you so far was probably the cleanest one I could give you. Is we just take way more precaution than everyone else, and that's about it, right? I'll give you an example. Richard, for example, before surgery will take a patient's vitamin D levels. You know, we'll test the saliva, like do things like that. So we know prior to surgery, do things need to be looked at. In tandem with some of the partner clinicians that we work with. Maybe you could do this and it will help recovery, or maybe you could do this and just get yourself a little bit healthier in that regard, or like doing a saliva test to look at triple MP8, right? And is that elevated or not? Is that showing that periodontitis is actually happening already, and to what degree? Just things like that. It's just a little bit in depth.
Well, it puts a massive spin on just. You come in, you get your checkup, and you disappear.
Exactly.
It's a whole different world.
Exactly.
And we have to wake up to the fact that our patients want this now.
Totally.
There is a whole new world out there. We've got a few dentists in Squat Success who are massively focused on this holistic dentistry.
Totally.
But it's crazy, and it's actually a unique business opportunity.
For sure.
And I think that's what I'm seeing from you guys. You're really just capitalising on that. And also from your own perspective, looking after your own team, but also what you do with your patients and building that within your business.
Well, I mean, our 3 dentists, myself, Father, and Richard, like we're all really into this stuff. In fact, me probably the latest, right? I'm not too too egotistical to say I know everything. I don't. You know, these guys are teaching me, right? And it's a pleasure to learn from them. But Richard's been doing it for a long time, you know, practicing in this manner, and he's seeing some incredible results, right? We've got a few delegates, shout out Emma and Rahini, who've done the DRE course level 1, level 2. They you know, really love those guys. They do very similar, and they switched us on and educated us on that. And Far's really been into it for the past few years. But we're all three of us are pretty health conscious. Like, we all train, we all like to eat well, we all want to be around for a long time and live not just a long time, but like a full one, right? So I think it all just naturally tied in. This is the vision for our lives. In fact, on our website it says exactly how we'd want to be treated ourselves. You know, because it really is. It really is the case, right? So
fantastic.
So that's that. In terms of the clinic side,
the final. Well, should we want to get to the juicy question?
I was just going to add one tidbit.
Yeah, go for it.
Which is vision for the clinic. However, for like the DRE group, it is, as mentioned, right, a place for them. Like, you've seen Surgery 1. We can get 6 guys in a really easy, stream live treatment on the large screen that you've seen. One could be doing suction, one's over shoulder, and then there's two watching the screen that can rotate, right? I mean, that is quite the experience. Every time I've done it, people have always said, I took so much away from that. Because, I can teach them techniques and they can go and apply it, but then they see the whole thing put together. Including the convo with the patient, the systems that we're using, little I'm going to spoil this, but little software that we've kind of made ourselves. You know, they get to see these things firsthand and go, oh, that's really cool. And so
well, this comes back to the conversation we had earlier, where it comes to clinical courses and education, with being hands-on and actually being able to see it, do it live. For sure. Compared to just the theory. For sure. And if you could build that within your practice, you know, fantastic. And this is what you guys are doing.
And that's where it kind of all feeds itself together, right? And so, like, for level 3 for us, we'll be revolving around our delegates actually treating patients. So, fantastic. You know, we're talking from, you know, in fact, the plan is high level in my brain as it stands right now, is like, you know, like this incremental program. So they're at this point, right? They know where they are. And they know where they want to go. We're going to bridge that gap by saying, all right, cool, this clinic, you're going to be doing this. Next clinic, it's not going to be way harder, but it is going to be harder. And then it's just that incremental challenge.
It's take them on a stage pathway,
bespoke,
all the way through.
Really bespoke. Of course, you can't do that for 320 people, but you can do that for like 8. You can do that for 12. You can do it like, you know, and so that's a different type of thing. So that's how this all ties together. Back to your juicy one now.
The juicy one. So we'll finish on this one, and it's a fascinating one, and I find it fascinating. How the hell do you charge what you charge for composites? Because most dentists will say you can't charge more than 150, 250 quid for a composite. MOD or MOD, whatever it is. And you guys, I know you're doing way more than that. For sure. How do you sell that? How do patients take it? What is the psychology behind that as well?
So number one,